Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this week is another episode. It's just me. Unfortunately for you guys listening, believe me, this is not what I had in mind. This is not what I wanted to have happen, but, it's hard to get people together to record, especially, as you're dealing with older teenagers who are doing, school stuff and in uni and all that. It's hard. It's hard to do. So, but next week's episode on Monday, I do have a guest planned, so we will be doing like a proper, full-on episode then, and that will be a tie-in episode to a release that's coming out next week, which should be really fun. And then also on Sunday will be the films that I watched this month, which will be probably a bit of a quicker one, because I haven't watched a whole lot of films this month, because, it's hard to when a lot of stuff for uni is due in relatively quick succession. But I will get these episodes recorded for you guys. It's probably, I will get this stuff recorded, and so that I can release it out to you. So, for this week's episode, I will be covering Monsters, Inc. and its sequel, Monsters University. So, I recently rewatched Monsters, Inc., so you'll hear me talk about that into what I watched this month. I did not rewatch Monsters University, which I guess is pretty much is a statement on my feelings and thoughts on that film. So, I've briefly touched on these films previously. I did a full Pixar ranked episode where I just gave my entire ranking for every Pixar film that had been released up to that point. I think it was either just before or just after Luca came out. So it was pretty much up to date for that. And I don't think I've covered another Pixar film on this podcast, but I am in future planning on doing more sort of tie-in episodes towards new release stuff, potentially. So I feel that in the future I might be doing more Pixar stuff, more Pixar episodes that tie in with the new and upcoming Pixar releases. This one isn't to tie in with anything. This is more just I needed an episode for this week, and I watched it recently, and I like it. It's a very good movie. The first one, I really, really love the first Monsters, Inc. So, yeah, sort of in a general sense, Pixar is a studio that I love quite a considerable amount. I think pretty much most of what Pixar creates is good. I don't think there's very few bad Pixar films. There's certainly some that are on a level of that's not that great. Like Pixar, there are definitely certain films which are like Pixar is better than this, and sort of other times. Pixar has created some of my all-time favorite films, and I have discussed some of them in sort of previous things. I did an episode of the podcast talking about my favorite, my top 10 animated films of all time, which there was a fair amount of Pixar and Disney stuff on there. But to be fair, I haven't watched the largest pool of that, so I do think I think Pixar as a studio is pretty consistently good at the very least. I don't think they've made a bad film in if I was to just look at the I have not seen Turning Red, so that is potentially a factor in this, because I have not seen it. So I don't know. Turning Red could be the one one I dislike, or such, not really care for as much. But I think probably Good Dinosaur was the last one I really didn't care for that much. I guess Cars 3, but at least I somewhat enjoyed Cars 3. But this is but Monsters, Inc. actually really jumped up for me on this rewatch. I absolutely loved it. I've always liked this film, but this time I really got into it. My nephew was staying over at the time, and I was like, I want to watch a movie, and also I was going to rewatch it anyway for the purpose of something I've got planned for the future. And yeah, I watched it with him, and he watched some of it. He did walk away at several points because he's a kid and he's like two years old. Yeah, no, he's not yet. He's nearly 2 years old. And you just get bored by stuff. You're sort of more interested in other things as you're a kid, and it's fair enough. So we were there, and yeah. And this rewatch, I rewatched it last year because I just was watching all the Pixar films, but this year on this rewatch, it really just worked for me on a really great level. It's amazing, and I will say, I've said this before in the past, but this is a film, and for all the other previous films that I've done, episodes that are just me, will probably, or at least some of them, will be redone as sort of proper-ish episodes. Like most of these will probably be done as their own proper episodes, with me and a guest on in the future, because I would like to definitely talk about some of these films again with other people, but this week is just me talking, just about how good Monsters Inc. is. It's unbelievable. It's so good, and it has the best elements of a lot of the best Pixar films. It has the great characters that a lot of Pixar films have. It's got the great. The animation is starting to become like really good. Like, it's just still early days Pixar, so the animation is definitely a bit choppy and a bit like, oh, that's not as like good. Like the quality isn't there in a way that sort of modern Pixar is, because it's the days when this was 2001 when this film came out, so it's very much like this is something that you sort of have to sort of look at in the context of its release, but it still looks really great for that year. Like the animation on Sully in particular is incredible, just how great he looks. Because that is like a pain to try and animate, from what I've gathered, fur and hair on monsters and creatures and such, because it's just so intricate. You have to do sort of like the individual hairs. You have to do each hair individually, which just can't be. It can't be like enjoyable to try and like work with that, because like animation is arguably, in fact, I would go far enough to say that animation is the hardest types of films to make, because not because of it's a hard, well, it's not a genre. Anyone who says animation is a genre is factually and objectively wrong, and I just can't deal with those people who are factually wrong about something. And I also cannot deal with people who dismiss the entire medium of animation because it's just for kids. It's like, no, it's not. It's not. Animated films are capable of so much greater emotion than certain live action films. Like the animation industry is like it's an unbelievably difficult industry to get into and to do, because it takes so much time to make an animated film, and it's very much, in my opinion, disrespectful to sort of blow off the entire medium as, oh, it's just for kids, or oh, you're just making kids films, oh, imagine, like that thing. Like, I can't deal with those kinds of people, and I think those people are stupid and honestly kind of are the worst. Like, it's because animation is so important to so many people. It is to me because it is what I grew up on. I grew up watching a lot. I grew up with two older sisters who loved Disney and Pixar, and a family who loved Pixar, and so hearing it's very much annoying listening to people sort of talk about the whole sort of medium of animation as lesser than, or it's just for kids, or it's not that good, or and it's just like, it's not though. You don't understand. Like Monsters Inc., the ending, Jesus Christ, like I was like pretty much close to tears when I was watching Monsters Inc. Like because I watched it last year and I got a little bit emotional then, but this one like really got to me in a way that only Pixar is able to do. I'm really, like, so many Pixar films have gotten to me on an emotional level in a way that most other films can't. Like Coco is forever my favorite Pixar film for so many reasons, you know, but it got to me so much emotionally that beyond the story and the characters, the animation, everything, the emotional backbone of Coco as a film got to me incredibly hard, you know, as a film, and so that's why it remains my favorite, because of the emotional impact it left on me, you know. Toy Story 3, the ending of Toy Story 3 is great and beautiful and amazing, and is not negated by the existence of 4, because 3 and 4 also, I think, has some really good emotional beats in it, and the difference between, and I think it's sort of, you know, 4, the existence of 4 doesn't negate the ending of 3 to me. I don't think it ever necessarily would, because I still think 4 is a really great film, but 3's ending still is impactful, you know. WALL-E has some great emotional moments in it, you know, a lot of Pixar's do, but Monsters Inc. it got to me on a level that a lot of Pixar films are able to do, or at least are closer and more likely to do and accomplish than most other films. Just the whole thing of Sully having to say goodbye to this child, and her not really understanding that he will probably never see her again, or at least not for a long time, was really emotional, and I did get very teary-eyed towards the end, because it's just because over just this 90 minutes of film, even less than actually, I've been so invested in these two characters, and you know, it's the obvious sort of logical conclusion that he has to, you know, take her back, and she has to, you know, stay, you know, she has to go back to the real world, as it were, but he doesn't want to, you know, like, it's interesting watching that the beginning of the film, where he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, and he's terrified of her, and so is Mike Wazowski, and then, you know, he says, you know, goodbye, but, you know, she gives him a hug, and then Sully says goodbye, and he gives her a hug, and it's just, yeah, no, Pixar it's an amazing studio, and they make pretty amazing films most of the time. And I've really sort of gone on this sort of tangential point, but the film, this film's really, really great, actually. The voice cast in it is spectacular. You've got John Goodman and Billy Crystal, the two leads, who I love both of them. You know, Billy Crystal is just incredibly funny in a lot of what I've seen him in, you know, in stuff like in Princess Bride, and, you know, When Harry Met Sally. You know, he's great in those films, and John Goodman as well is really great, you know, in Community, which he was on briefly, Big Lebowski, which is one of his more, you know, sort of iconic roles. Like, He was also in Raising Arizona, which is great. I really love him in Raising Arizona, and then they two, and the two of them as characters really play off each other well, and makes the film work as well as it does, because that's sort of you need in this kind of film. You need the two leads to have chemistry with each other, because if you don't, then the film doesn't work, and you're not invested in their relationship. Like when they sort of fall out and they get upset with each other and they're no longer friends, you sort of, you need to be invested in these two characters. And, I think it's fair to say that you do get invested in them, that when they fall out in just before like the third act, it feels real. And it's not like, because I feel like a lot of films have a problem where they sort of do things, they have the main characters fall out, but it doesn't feel genuine, or it doesn't feel earned in a way that it's supposed to, because I feel like there's no problem necessarily with having characters fall out and no longer be friends with each other, but you need them. There needs to be like a good reason and a genuine, believable reason why these two would get upset with each other and no longer want to be friends, and that's what. And in this film, there's a very, very believable reason. Sully wants to do this thing. He wants to, he wants to do all this stuff to sort of take care of Boo, and Mike didn't want to, just sort of wanted to take her back, because it would be too much stress, and then they get thrown out into the Himalayas, the abominable snowman, and so it's just like, yeah, that's what happens, but they don't, and so them falling out is completely believable and genuine, and you totally understand where they're coming from both perspectives, and they're sort of both wrong and right. Neither side is like wrong or right. Like you can sort of see where both are coming from in their in their sort of beliefs, as it were. The film was just really great. You got Steve Buscemi as Randall, who I love Steve Buscemi. I don't know if I've discussed this before, but I have a real love for Steve Buscemi as an actor. He's incredible. I love him to bits. Reservoir Dogs. He's so great in Reservoir Dogs. He's also really enjoyable in The Big Lebowski, and he's enjoyable in what I have seen of him in Miracle Workers, which I do recommend you guys check out at some point. Miracle Workers, he's quite funny. He's basically God in the show. That's pretty much what Steve Buscemi's role is in that show. He is God. There's and I also really love. There's so much I love about this. Pete Docter is probably the best director of any Pixar. Maybe Brad Bird's a bit better, but it's between Brad Bird and Pete Docter for best Pixar directors. But I think Pete Docter is more consistent throughout. I think The Incredibles 2 has sort of brought Brad Bird down. So I think Brad Bird has got Incredibles 2, which isn't bad by any means, but very much like, that was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? But Pete Docter is arguably the best Pixar director that the company has, and he's really, really excellent. He's fantastic. I absolutely loved this film on my rewatch. The third act sort of, I don't know if battle is the correct word, but like when they're jumping through all the doors, they have Bushi activates all the doors, and then they're sort of jumping through doors and teleporting throughout the whole thing. That's just brilliant. I love that. I love that so much. It's such a creative. It's such a creative where sort of establishing everything that's sort of been built up throughout the film so far. You've got, and throughout the film sort of it was sort of shown rather that laughter is incredibly more powerful than sadness, than the screams and crying of children. But yeah, it's a very, very good film that I absolutely love, and I do highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, you should. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, and I'm just going to briefly talk about Monsters U, and then I'll wrap up. So Monsters University, a bit disappointing, honestly. I had a lot of hope. When I rewatched it last year, I had a lot of hope going into it that it would be good. That maybe I sort of misremembered it and that it would be better than I expected, but nope, that didn't happen at all. In fact, it didn't actually get worse for me. It very much stayed the same in terms of sort of my thoughts. It was a perfectly fine film. It's fine. It's it's fine. It's nothing amazing or something mind-blowing for Pixar, but yeah, it's perfectly enjoyable. I think Goodman and Crystal are both good in it. I think they embody the characters very, very well, and I don't think there's any real problems with them. Steve Buscemi also is fine. I think I don't think that his inclusion in the film was a bad thing. Hell, it kind of does make sense to sort of establish the whole feud between the two. I think that's actually perfectly fine. I didn't like when they had the abominable snowman in there. That just was oh, come on, we don't need that. That wasn't necessary to this film. It's this isn't, we just didn't need this. There's certain, the problem with prequels is that a lot of the time, the problem with a lot of prequel films is that a lot of the time there's callbacks and references to the first film that are just fan servicey as hell, and they're just this is not necessary, this is just not, this isn't needed, they don't need to have, we understand it's in the same universe, we don't need to have, we don't need constant references, oh, remember this character from the first movie, and oh, look at all this, and these people and all that, and it's just I don't, this isn't necessary to me. This is not what I'm after. All I want is just to tell a good story, and maybe and some sort of stuff that's oh, so this is why these people are like this in this movie. Oh, and there's that character from that first movie, and then or this is how they meet or whatever. It's just sort of I don't know why, but it's a decent film. I kind of like the emotional through line of Mike isn't that scary, and Sully doesn't believe in him, and so they have all this stuff. I enjoy that stuff, but it does feel he is kind of scary. He's just Sully is just a big tall thing of fluff, and Mike's a one-eyed green ball. It just feels a bit weird, and I think the supporting characters are fine. I don't think any of them are particularly amazing, except for the purple guy that rolls around. He's he's got the two long legs, the short little T-Rex arms. He was fine. He was enjoyable. I enjoyed the games, the sort of college campus games. I thought that was pretty enjoyable. But yeah, it's just a mid-tier sort of mediocre Pixar film, and that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. So, thank you for joining me for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Next week will be a tie-in to a new release film that's coming out next week, in fact. And on Sunday, I will have the films that I watched this past month. So yeah, check out social media stuff, check out website, check out everything. Email me if you've got questions or suggestions or anything cool like that. And I will see all of you guys in the next one. Goodbye.